Hi there, my name is Annette with Sunbeam Fabric Art. Welcome to my channel. Hey, today we're going to make a duck. This is a black-bellied whistling duck. It's a pattern I designed myself, and I'm excited to take you along as I put this block together. Okay, let's do a quick run through of this pattern. Here we go. Here's the bird of the month, April 2023, black-bellied whistling duck, based on my own photo. So here we can see the picture of the drawing, how it was rendered, and here we can see the sections. So we have sections A through N. The hardest one is going to be M because that has the I, and that bill is a little tricky, but it's not as bad as the I. So the I would say is intermediate. The rest of the sections aren't too bad. You can see that they're pretty big pieces. So, but as always, the I is going to be the hardest. And then here we have the instructions on assembly. So we've got M plus N, that equals 1. We've got A plus B, that equals 2, which is this little triangle. We've got D plus E, and then we add C, and then we add L, and that makes 3. Then we've got F and G. Then we add on I to that, we add on K to that, and we add on H to that. That equals 4, and then we've got J all by itself. So we've got 3 plus 4 plus J, that equals this section. Then we add section 2, which is A and B, and last we add 1, which was M and N, to get a complete picture. Okay, so what else have we got in here? We've got a full-size image of the drawing, so you can see about how big that inner eye is. It's not too bad. It's not too bad. It's not as bad as those owls we did a couple of months ago. And here again is a bigger part of the sections, so you can zoom in and kind of see what you're looking at, what goes where. Then we got the pattern pieces. Yay, pattern pieces. They all have the letter on them. Well, most of them. So here we've got M and N with the numbers. And as you can see, this is a little hard to see those numbers the way the computer prints them on there. So we've got another piece, and this one isn't great either. You can kind of see the 1, then 2 is that little tiny triangle, then 3, then 4, then 5, then 6, 7, 8. But to make things easier, I've got the exact same thing without the numbers pre-printed. So it's a little bit easier. And then to make it even easier, especially on this eye, I've got this blown up so you can really see which little section here is number 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, and then it gets easier after that. All right, that's the pattern. Let's get to it. Step 1 for me is always picking out my fabrics that I'm going to use. I was lucky enough to be able to find some fabrics in my stash that worked for me. I found this coral to be the bill. I found a reddish color. I'm going to fussy cut out that orange to make the dark spot on the bill. I'm going to use blue for the background. I'm going to use this tan fat quarter for the head and neck area, that light beige. I chose this brown print for the dark portions of the bird, and a black and a white to complete the bird. And as you'll see later on, there were a couple of colors that I missed. So here you see I am cutting all the pattern pieces apart. Once I have that done, I take each pattern piece and I cut out each piece of fabric that I'm going to need to stitch that piece together. When I was picking my colors, I missed picking out gray. I need a small piece of gray for the inner eye, just one tiny piece of gray. And once I have all the fabric cut out for each section, I just add it to a stack, and then when I get my stack complete, I am ready to sit down at the sewing machine and put these together section by section. When I got to this section, I realized I needed one more color for the body of the duck. Now it's time to put the fabric back in the stash and start sewing my sections. The first section I put together was M, which was the eye. I meant to do this slowly to demonstrate it better, but I had my camera set on the speedy setting. The M section by itself took quite a bit of time, probably about half an hour. And here is section M completed. So we're going to take a slow look at section N, and putting N together took me about 15 minutes. Section N has 9 pieces. Piece 1 is that fussy cut orangey red color. Then we've got that bill color, kind of a coral, and then some blue. To start, I'm placing that dark orangey red that is piece 1 right sides together with the coral that will be piece 2. I'm going to place those on the back of the printed pattern so that I know my stitch line between piece 1 and piece 2 will be covered. It really helps to have a lamp or something nearby so you can kind of see the light coming through the thin paper. Once I've got those pieces secure, I'm going to stitch with a 1.8 stitch length, and I'm stitching the line between 1 and 2 with about 2 to 3 stitches ahead and about 2 to 3 stitches at the end. After each piece, I do trim excess threads. And next I'm going to press that fabric open. Now it's time to add piece 3. So I locate where piece 3 is. Then I take the piece of fabric I'm going to use. I'm going to put that right sides together with the fabric that's already on the back. And I'm going to be looking with the light behind me to make sure that that fabric is covering up the line I'm going to stitch on. And again, with that 1.8 stitch length, I'm stitching 2 to 3 stitches before and 2 to 3 stitches after the line between what I already have and the new piece I'm adding, number 3. Now it's time to fold back the paper on the line I just stitched, and you can see all that excess fabric there. I'm going to trim that away about 1/4 inch away from the stitch line. Then I'm going to press the fabric open. All right, now it's time to add piece 4. I'm just double checking my numbers here. Where is piece 4? There it is. I'm going to grab my piece of fabric for piece 4. I'm going to place it right sides together with the fabric that's already on the back. I'm going to make sure that that stitch line is covered up. And we will stitch that line with 1.8 stitch length and get a couple extra stitches at the beginning and a couple extra stitches at the end. Now I'm going to fold back the paper on the stitch line I just sewed carefully, making sure I don't tear the paper. Then I'm going to trim off that excess fabric about 1/4 inch or so away from my stitch line. Then I'm going to take that to the iron and press that fabric open. Alright, now we're going to add piece 5, and it's going to be the same way. Put that fabric right side together with the fabric that's already on the back, and we're going to stitch that line to add piece 5. We will fold back the paper on the line we just stitched, carefully not to tear the paper. Trim that excess fabric and then press that fabric open. And we will add piece 6 in the same way. Now it's time to add piece 7. For piece 7, I was having a hard time seeing my new piece of fabric behind this other fabric that was already there. So I went ahead and folded back on the line and trimmed what was already there, that 1/4 inch. That made it a lot easier for me to see where my fabric was going to be. Now it's time to add piece 8, which is a small piece of blue. Okay, now it's time to add the last piece to this section. This is an interesting piece. It's a little odd shaped and it's attached with an angle. So I made a little crease on my fabric so I would know where to attach. So I'm imagining if I sewed on that crease line on the back side of this piece, would it fold back and cover up where it's supposed to cover up? All right, well, you're going to see some trauma here. I folded this paper back. I was going to trim 1/4 inch away from my stitch line to get rid of some bulk and to see exactly where I was going to lay down this blue fabric. And as you're going to see in a minute, I am cutting on the wrong side. I am cutting what I want to keep. I just cut that beautiful bill off. I was rather annoyed with myself, but I moved on. I got my extra piece N that had the numbers on it and redid the piece. And this time I made sure and trimmed on the correct side. All right, let's get this piece 9 stitched on there. And here we have our completed piece N. It doesn't look like a whole lot now, but it will look great later, trust me. I continued sewing these sections together until I was done with all the sections. With all the sections completed, it is time to trim these sections. So make sure you trim on the outer edge because there is a seam allowance included in this pattern. There's an inner line that's solid, and that is the stitch line. Then there's an outer line that is dotted, and that is the cut line, and includes the seam allowance. For the larger pieces, I do like to use a ruler and a rotary cutter just to keep everything in place as I do the trimming. On smaller pieces that have plenty of stitching, I prefer to just pick it up in my hand and do the trimming with a pair of scissors. Once I had all these pieces trimmed, I laid them out in alphabetical order on my cutting mat just so I could make sure I had everything and to make it easier for me to follow the instructions on assembling this block. So step 1 on these instructions is to put piece M and piece N together, and I'm going to be using clips a lot during this process. I am also going to frequently refer to my picture to see where these two pieces come together, what needs to match. So I'm going to lay M and N right sides together on the correct line, and I'm going to put a clip where I think it should match, and I'm going to double check to make sure that that bill and it is matching up exactly where I want it to be, matching on the other piece. Next, I take it to the machine and I'm stitching on the stitch line showing on my paper. Since I am still stitching with paper, I'm still using a 1.8 stitch length. All right, we've got that ready to go. As much as I can, I tear off paper as I go. And here is our completed Unit 1. I continued following the instructions on my instruction sheet, putting the sections together into units, and then finally putting all the units together to make the completed block. Hey, thanks for joining me today as we made this lovely bird. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did, and I hope to see you back soon.